Alan to get us started with today. Alan, if you'd like to kick us off.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Emma. So as Emma said, so I'm head of modern workplace at a consultancy in the UK. I work a lot with clients who are adopting Office 365, Microsoft 365. And I guess what I'm sharing today is really some real life lessons around how people have chosen to use these tools and how they have used them to increase their productivity. So what am I going to cover today? So I'm going to cover a bit about what the problem is. How do we collaborate? How can we be productive? And then I'm going to do some demos of the tools that are available. And then just a recap and some key takeaways for you. So I guess, what is the problem? Is there a problem? Productivity is always really hard to measure. For many organizations, it's, especially information workers, it's a very hard measure to put a number on. And I always found this chart's quite interesting because it kind of correlates to some key events taking place. So, how we measure productivity, growing, and then we have a sudden dip there, and that could be measured. There's many reasons that dip could actually be there, but actually the iPhone was released around there. Well, there could be a correlation there. There's also other things that took place, towards the end of that decade. But I guess, the iPhone really symbolizes, I guess, how we as users of technology have changed the way we work. And, when we think about what we do in our jobs, whilst the iPhone was released as a personal device, many of us actually still use an iPhone and smartphones and many other tools as part of our work as well. And it's kind of created a bit of a challenge. We want to collaborate. We have all of these tools for collaboration, but also we need to be productive. We need to do what we're employed to do. And some of the time that is definitely collaboration. But generally there is a bit of a dichotomy. We can't collaborate and be productive at the same time. At least most of us can't. So what are some of the expectations that we have? Collaboration can be measured as multiple things. Answering emails, being prepared for meetings. Those are things that we are expected to be. Some organizations or some individuals expect us to always be accessible. Being able to pick up a phone and ring somebody in the middle of the night. It used to be that was something that you were paid extra to be accessible at all hours. Now it's almost an expectation. And we do use multiple tools. We use all sorts of different tools that maybe are sanctioned corporate tools. Maybe some of them are shadow IT. Maybe some of them are just informal ways of communicating with our peers. So there's multiple tools that we use. And inevitably, there is an expectation that no matter what tool we're using, we should be available to respond straight away. And, this isn't the same as being productive. We can be productive by actually sitting down and concentrating on things, solving complex problems, delivering high quality work. But actually more and more, we're being forced to be productive in short bursts, to be productive on the spot. You attend a meeting, you're asked a question, you weren't expecting it, you're expected to answer questions straight away. And so therefore, we've got two quite different things that we're being asked to be able to do. And these are mutually exclusive. We can't just sit in a meeting all the time and just attend meetings. We won't get anything done if we're just in meetings. Inevitably, there are actions and there are things that we actually need to do. So being productive and being collaborative, whilst we need to do them both, we actually need to make sure that we're doing them at different times. So just a little thought experiment. When you think about focus and you think about how you actually work on something, think about this question. What is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything? And I know most of you probably already know the answer. And most of us will come up with a number 42. But just think of how long that actually took. So Deep Thought, the computer that came up with that, it took 7.5 million years to work out. Just imagine how much longer it would have taken with all the modern disruptions that we have, the interruptions, the distractions. It would have taken an awful lot longer to actually work it out rather than just sitting down and focusing on working out the answer. So let's take that and think about, what do we actually have to do? What do we actually work on? So when we think about ourselves and we think about, the activities that we need to do, they're all based on our particular role. So, everybody's going to be slightly different. The way we work, when we work, is all different. But fundamentally, we need to think about how we work. What do we do? Emails, do we respond to them quickly? Are we expected to respond to them instantaneously, maybe? Meetings, how many do we attend? Are they useful? How many meetings do you go to and you go, actually, that was a really useful meeting. Really glad we had that. I bet the answer isn't as many as you'd like it to be. And thinking about things like tasks, how do we get them allocated to us? Are they a conversation? Are they an email that has a task in it? Are they more formal? Do you get project managers assigning tasks to you? How do you prioritize them all? If you've had an email that's sent to you with a task and you've got a project manager who's allocating a task to you, how do you choose which one's more important? And then once you've chosen what's important for you, how do you actually focus on them? How do you make sure those tasks get done? Do you know how long they're going to take? Can you plan that? Can you schedule that time? And then collaboration with your colleagues. You need to have that interaction. You need to have those meetings, those emails, those Teams messages. Now that everybody's working primarily online, many people seem to think there's more meetings taking place. That's not necessarily a good thing. So working out how you actually collaborate, how do you work together on code, on documents, make sure that actually when you're working together, you're all being productive and you're working to your best capability. Lots of things to think about how you work within your team, how your team works within your organization, how you work together with other teams. So things to think about in terms of how you engage with other people. So let's think about it in terms of some ground rules. If we want to have some level of productivity and collaboration, and we want to have a balance, we kind of need to set some expectations around how we're going to balance that. So one of the things that I like to ask is, expectations around responses to emails. How are you going to respond? How often are you going to respond? So for me, I put a footer in my email and I put it in there to say that, email is for me, it's an asynchronous communication form. I'm not going to be checking email all the time. I don't have pop-ups that are going to come up every time I receive an email. If I did, I would have that popping up every 30 seconds or so, or at least that's how it would feel. So I try to set expectations. I try to say in my email footer, actually, this is how long it's going to take me. And if you want a response more quickly, flag the email. And I'll show you why I'm flagging the email as we get into some of the tools. But I'm trying to say to people, this is how I work. I also have something in there that says my hours are different. I might be working in the evening. I might be working early in the morning. I'm not expecting you to do the same thing. And so for me, I think it's really important that we set expectations around how we respond to emails. And don't copy everybody in if they don't need to be. I mean, question, does your organization have a set expectation for how fast you should be responding to email? Most organizations don't. They might set it for their customers. If your customer actually sends you an email, you need to respond in a certain amount of time. But how fast do you actually have to respond internally to a colleague? Something to think about, whether it's within your team or your organization as a whole. And think about all of those emails that you get that actually you don't need to get. Do you need to read emails that are CC'd to you? Maybe you don't. Personally, I have a process, a flow that actually just moves them all into a folder. I will review them on a weekly basis, but I'm not going to look at them because I'm CC'd. They're not to me. They don't have an action for me. And that's quite important. And we'll go through in the ceremonies about how you can manage some of that. But think about who needs to actually receive that email. Are you asking them to do something? In which case, make it very clear that you're asking them to do something. Think about that response time. Do you have a response time? Should you think about your organization having a response time to internal emails? Thinking about meetings, if I go to a meeting, I want to know what is expected of me. I want to be prepared. I want to be able to answer questions that are going to be asked of me in that meeting. And to help me do that, I want to know in advance, is there an agenda? What is the expectation for the meeting? What are the objectives of the meeting? I also want to know what I need to prepare. What follow-up is expected afterwards? If I'm going to be asked to do things, I know it's a joke that people get assigned actions when they don't turn up, but I want to know if there's going to be things that I follow up on. Do I have the time to do that? When I'm in a meeting, I like to make sure that people are being focused on that meeting, sharing screens, making sure that there's, the agenda, the presentation, the content, whatever it is that we're discussing, put it on screen so that people are looking at it. Use whiteboards to actually create something that's evolving with the meeting. Keeping notes in a whiteboard, it's a really nice way to actually keep people focused on the meeting. Use video so you can actually see what people are doing, see when they're maybe not paying quite as much attention as you want, and keep meetings short as well. I have it set up in Outlook to say, actually, I want to have 5 minutes at the end of every meeting or 10 minutes at the end of every hour, and actually say that meeting doesn't actually have to be that long. My default meeting is 25 minutes long. I need to think about it if I'm going to make it longer than that. Keeping meetings productive is really valuable for everybody involved because it keeps them short and sharp, and hopefully if you've got an agenda as well and you've set expectations about what people need to do before and after, they're going to be prepared and they're actually going to hit the ground running when you start to talk about what you're working on. If you, as I say, if you go into Outlook, so this is Outlook Online, and if you go in, you can actually set, to add online meetings to all meetings, default reminders, and the shortened duration of all events. I can say end events early. If it's less than an hour, give me 5 minutes back. If it's an hour or longer, give me 10 minutes back. So really nice way just to allow Outlook to do most of the hard work for us, to actually allow us to get a little bit of time back. And let's face it, when we're all working remotely, we're all working online, having back-to-back meetings, most people aren't going to go, oh, well, I'm going to just put a meeting in, and I don't mind whether you've got a meeting that starts straight afterwards. So just giving that 5 minutes grace for everybody attending the meeting, it's a very good thing to leave that 5 minutes at the end. Quick question. Would it be rude to not accept meetings without clear expectations? I actually have a flow that actually responds to meetings that doesn't have any agenda or that is booked in over other things and says, I'm going to tentatively accept this, but unless you put an agenda in, I'm not going to accept it. And if you actually give me an agenda, I might be able to prioritize it over what I already have scheduled for that time. So, and I'll share a blog on Twitter afterwards around how to set that flow up. But it's very easy. But a lot of my peers now look to try and get the thank you that they get when they actually book a meeting that's got an agenda and doesn't actually double book. So that's a nice little way to actually just manage expectations with your peers, that actually there are times when you can book meetings. Now, for focus, really removing distractions. I'm doing a meeting at the moment, so therefore, and I'm doing it through Teams. So I've used that Teams/DND at the top to make sure I'm in do not disturb mode. I do have a message that always pops up to say, please just say hi, ask a question, rather than just saying hi and leaving it waiting for me to respond. As I said earlier, Outlook, disable notifications and sounds. Don't have those emails popping up all the time. Focus Assist in Windows. It allows you to actually just silence all of the notifications you get in the bottom right-hand corner. And phone, depending how you use your phone, turn it to silent, place it out of sight. Only access social media on your phone. That's an interesting experiment to see whether you keep your phone in your hand the whole time, or whether you actually can put your phone down and actually work on being productive. So really, when you want to remove distractions, do think about what is actually distracting you, because you want to put aside that time to be focused and to be productive, and then your collaboration time, That's when you want to actually look at all of the email, go through the email, look at WhatsApp, look at Facebook, Twitter, whatever your poison is. You can look at all of the social media. But when you have it on your phone, back in the day when you used to go and get a coffee, it would be a great way just to browse the social media, browse your email, just see what's going on, rather than actually when you're trying to focus, when you're trying to be productive. So I guess one of the key things for me where we're looking at all of this is, whilst we can remove distractions, we can set all those expectations to other people. Actually, we need to own our own time. So when I say own our time, what I really mean is we want to make the most of our time. Just before I go into the other elements of this, some words on focus. Now, focus is a word that I use to describe when you're trying to concentrate on something, when you're trying to remove the distractions, and when you're trying to, write a document, write code, get your head into an area where you're really concentrating and doing some hard mental work. And focus is like a muscle. We can only concentrate really hard for a finite amount of time. When you get a switch in focus, it takes effort. When I used to work with a lot of developers, and I'd say, how long is that going to take? And they'd say, oh, that'll only take 5 minutes. I'd be like, well, no, it's not, because you're going to have to stop what you're doing. You're going to have to pick up this new thing. It'll then maybe take 5 minutes once you found the right place to make a change, test it, and then you need to put it away, make sure it's all tidied up, and then get back to what you were doing before. That's a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time, and it destroys the flow that you get in, that zone where you're really just thinking about one thing. So think of focus like a muscle. You need to exercise it, but it can only last for so long. And switching effort, really, it detracts from all of the hard work you put into actually just getting yourself into that zone. So you need to find the balance of how you manage that time. If you know that you focus better at certain times of day, think about that. You could be going down different routes. So monastic, just thinking about complete isolation for 3 or 4 days. Bimodal, you might have irregular times where you kind of go, well, 1 day a week I'm going to be focusing, and then another half day because I've got some time, so I'm just going to choose different times. You might actually go with just a rhythmic, regular allocation of time. If you know that you're working better in the morning, block out a few mornings a week. If you know that you work better in the afternoon or the evening, block out some time in the evening. And just make sure that time is set aside when you are going to be stronger in your focus. Your focus muscle is going to be stronger. Personally, I like mornings. I focus in the mornings, but then I also focus in the afternoons because I've got everything out of the way, so I can relax because I don't know that I don't have anything else to think about. So there are different ways to think about when you might actually focus. So once you've identified, how good you are at focusing, as in how long you can actually put aside to really focus on something, and when you can do it, then start to own your time. You can then start to say, actually, for productivity, I know when in the day I should actually schedule time. And for collaboration, well, that can fit in everywhere else, can't it? So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to say, I know as an individual when my time is best put to a focus purpose or to a collaboration purpose. And then when you've got that time booked out, I know in my organization, you need to protect it. People come in, they book time over other meetings, and there are tools to help with that, but protect your time. Nope, sorry, that's my focus time. I'm going to actually be productive during that time. Okay, instead of booking it over my focus time, book it in the free time that I've set aside for collaboration and for meetings. So think about owning the time and protecting that time. It is going to be particular to the job that you do. And there isn't a silver bullet in terms of it'll work for everybody. So think about how often you deal with clients. Are there particular days that you can put aside? Are there particular times? You need to find your own balance for this, and that's sometimes easier said than done, but like focus, it takes practice, and you will be able to find the right time. A lot of that is to do with setting expectations and managing expectations of others. So to give you an idea what that might look like, here's a sample calendar. So I've got some ceremonies scheduled in there. I've got to start the week, I've got to start the day, end the week, and lunch. Those are the ceremonies that I have. But I've also got focus time booked in the afternoon there. So I know that I'm trying to keep those 3 days, those 3 afternoons reserved so that I can actually get on with focusing with no distractions, and I can basically shut myself away from the world and just get on with what I know I'm going to need to do during those sessions. It's a very nice way when you get people up to speed with this and they understand that actually, oh, all of those other time, all that white time, that's when I can book meetings. That's when they're going to really start to understand that they don't have to double book your time. There's a finite amount of your time and they can book all of that white time for other meetings. Now, those other ceremonies there. So I call them ceremonies for productivity, and because they really do help to shape what I'm going to do during those focus times. So during those focus times, I use something called the Pomodoro Technique. It's a very simple way to practice that focus muscle. So you set an amount of time, usually sort of between 25 and 40 minutes, to just focus on one task, getting one thing done, doing one thing, and during that time you don't do anything else. It was named the Pomodoro Technique after the Pomodoro timer by an Italian gentleman, and basically all you do is you set your timer and off you go. You work on that task for a period of time, and then you have a 5-minute break, and during that break you do something else. So it might be, you have a comfort break, you go get a coffee, you check your email, you check Twitter, you do something else, and then you start your next Pomodoro. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to give yourself concerted amounts of time where you are focusing with breaks that are defined, so that you know that you actually, it's like stretching rather than just doing the hard work the whole time. You then have a bit of a stretch and then you carry on. So that's the way the Pomodoros work. And the idea is that you do, say, 4 of them, and then you have a longer break, so maybe 20 minutes. And then you go through the cycle again. So there are apps to help with this, and some of them do integrate with Microsoft to do, but it's a very useful way to say, right, okay, I know how much time I have in my focus session, and I know how many Pomodoros I can squeeze into that time. So this is the number of tasks that I might try and do within that period of time. So it's a very useful way when you're in your focus time to really get yourself working in a routine and just focus on doing something for 40 minutes. And I have to be honest, if you've never tried it before, when you actually get into the routine, you will be surprised how much you can get done in that amount of time when you're just saying, I just want to get this one thing done and there are no other distractions. So what about those other ceremonies? Well, when we look at those other ceremonies, they're really to try and triage and manage the work that you have coming in. So the start of the week ceremony for me is basically identifying what's important for this week. I'm going to have a whole bunch of different tasks that I need to do, and they may have come from multiple different sources, but out of all of those tasks, I somehow need to understand what is important in terms of, if I can't do everything in the week, I need to prioritize. So I'm going to choose some of those tasks and they're going to be important to me for that week. Then I have a start the day process. And that ceremony is really to say, okay, out of all the important tasks, what am I going to do today? So I might have some time that's available. It might be a focus block, or it might just be time that's not been booked into meetings. So I want to identify, based on the amount of time I have available to me, how many of these tasks that are important can I do today? And then I'm going to drag them into Outlook and block that time out. So I'm committing to myself that I'm going to complete those tasks today. At the end of each day, I want to just go back over those tasks, make sure they're ticked off. So ideally, I have completed them. Now, we all know that in reality, maybe I haven't, but I'm going to have to actually go through, and hopefully I'm getting that little dopamine hit of ticking a task off and going, actually, I've completed something. And there is a neurochemical reaction to that, which does make us happy. So something to bear in mind. But then at the end of every day as well, I want to make sure I've recorded any new tasks. So whilst I've been focusing and I've been using my Pomodoros and doing the work, taking my 5 minutes, I may have had emails that have come in and they've given me a new task. I may have had new tasks assigned to me by project managers or by colleagues. So I want to make sure all of those are recorded. And then at the end of each day, I'm going to go back and relax for the evening, come back the next day and go, right, now what am I going to do today? So I'm going to do that start and the end day every day. And then at the end of the week, hopefully I'm going to celebrate my achievements. I'm going to celebrate that my important list is, if not completed, it's depleted. So I've got a lot less there. But then I'm also going to review the upcoming week. Are there any meetings that I need to prepare for? Are there any tasks that I maybe need to put in that I haven't thought of based on the week, but based on knowing what I've got coming up? Do I need to book meetings? Do I need to actually prepare for those meetings? So these are all really geared around managing the work that you have to do during a week and during a day, with the aim of actually completing things every day and completing things so that you can celebrate at the end of the week and go, actually, I've done what I need to do. Everything that I need to do next week is written down, because that also will have a significant benefit on the load on your brain, the cognitive load, if you've written down those tasks. So these are the ceremonies that I want to go through. So let's start with the end of the week. Are there any gaps that should be blocked for focus time? And this is really looking at next week. Do I need to block in any time? Have I got chunks of time that I should block out so that nobody can put any meetings in there? Are there any meetings that mean I should move my focus time? So I need to be flexible. I need to be able to say, actually, yes, I need to have a meeting come in. Maybe it's a client meeting, maybe it's a meeting with, a senior member of the organization. Does that mean I need to move my focus time? Yes, okay, let's make sure my calendar is up to date so that next week, if people are looking to book any meetings, my calendar is up to date. Have I scheduled time to prepare for meetings? Ideally, I have all of the agendas. I know what's expected of me, so I should be able to prepare for those meetings. But maybe I need to actually make sure I've got a task created for them and block that time out to make sure I'm prepared for those meetings. And then I also want to celebrate my achievements. End of the week, really important. I want to enjoy the weekend. So therefore, I need to be able to mentally switch off and go, great, I've completed all of the things that were important to me. Now I can switch off and have a good weekend. The next thing I'm going to do is start the week. Reset all my important tasks. Identify the tasks that I need to do this week. Now, that is going to be based on the capacity that I have over the week, but it's also based on what needs to be done this week. Let's prioritize those. So really the key here is prioritizing the tasks that I expect to do this week. Start the day. What am I going to do today? Block out the time that things I'm going to do. Make sure that that time can't be taken by anything else. And then the end of the day, make sure I've ticked off all my tasks, review all the new tasks, review all the emails that maybe have tasks, and if necessary, update my important list. If I get new tasks come in, I need to update my important tasks so that when I do my start the day, I can actually go through that. So just a quick note before we go into a demo on prioritizing emails. Now, if I receive emails, if I'm going through my 5 minutes between Pomodoros, I'm going to have emails come in, and some of those are going to come in and I'm going to be able to action them straight away. So I should action them straight away. Others I might not be able to action during that 5-minute break. So therefore I'm going to put them into an action folder. Now I might put a Pomodoro aside to actually review my action folder as part of my close the day scenario. So I want to actually say, I know that I need to go through everything that's come in that I need to do something about. That way I can go through and I can create tasks from them, understand them, make sure they're showing up in to do. That way I know what I'm going to then prioritize based on importance and what I can add to my day. Other things I might do is put them into a waiting folder if I'm waiting for a response, and I can go through those, and I understand that maybe I need to chase people. That's a relatively quick job, but I can do that as well. If I need to read things, I can put them into a read file. If I want to file them, and I can put them into a to file, and then I might have other folders that I need to do. But fundamentally, what I'm trying to do here is to have a very quick way to work out what I need to do with emails, so that I don't need to spend lots and lots of time until I actually put time aside to go through that action folder. So with that, I want to go in and show you exactly how this actually works. So let me come over to, so I'm going to start off with Microsoft To Do. So if you've not seen Microsoft To Do before, this is the desktop app, and basically it has a whole bunch of different folders in here, different lists. So down here we have task lists. So we can have task lists, and they can contain different tasks. I can also have task lists that I use as templates, because one of the things I can do here is I can actually duplicate a list. So if you have a regular set of things that you do, then actually you can put them in here, and you can then use that as a template. That's what I've done here for this session. So when I've gone through this, I've got these tasks, and basically to actually tick a task off, all I need to do is tick the tick, and it's done. So very easy to tick things off. When I look into the tasks, I can have different steps. I can add it to my day, and we'll come on to my day in a second. I can put reminders in as well. So I can add due dates. I can put reminders at particular times. If I put a due date in there, so let's say today, then it'll tell me that it's due today. I can have tasks that are repeating. So if I want monthly, weekly, daily tasks, I can put those in as well. You can assign them, but I would tend to use Planner if I was going to assign tasks, rather than using Microsoft To Do. Same with files. I can add files, but I would rather use SharePoint or OneDrive, so I tend not to actually add files in. But these are simple tasks. When I look at the steps that I can put in, I can tick these off as well. So basically, I can say I've done all of these things, tick, done, and when they're completed, I can either choose to get rid of them and delete them, or I can get rid of the whole list. If that's an event that's taken place, then I can get rid of the whole event. So tasks are really quite simple. They're quite straightforward in terms of what we can do in there. Now, the really good thing about To Do is, as well as having personal tasks like these, tasks that maybe you've written down on a piece of paper, on a notepad, the real power where we start to see To Do coming together is actually these lists at the top, which are called smart lists. So where I look at these, actually one of the things that I see here is flagged emails. Now, these are actually emails that I've received, and if I flag them, they'll show up in here. So you may have noticed one of the things I had was a footer in my email saying, I'll respond in 48 hours, but if you want me to pay attention to your email, flag it as important, and then I will see it in To Do. So if I flip over to Outlook, so if I come in here and I have an email in here, so let's take this message center one. If I flag that email, then that will be flagged there, and what will happen is that because that's flagged, that will show up in To Do. So flag today, weekly digest, and that's the one I've just flagged. So it's really useful when I'm going through my emails and I'm moving them into that action folder. I can actually flag them at the same time, and I will see them come up here, and I can then prioritize them and work with them in the same way that I'm working with my tasks. So I've got multiple ways to actually manage a task that comes in through email to say, actually, I can create a task from that. I can flag it. Now, the other one I have here is assigned to you. Now, these are actually coming in from Planner. So because these Planner tasks have been assigned to me, I can see them in here. So again, using one tool, I can see tasks from Planner. I can see flagged emails, and I can see tasks that I've actually created myself. So I've got lots of different ways to actually see tasks that are personal, tasks that are team, and those ad hoc tasks that come through via email, all in one place. So this means that basically when I look at my diary and I say, okay, I'm going to start my week, I'm going to start my week, and I'm going to create everything that's important. So I'm going to use to do to actually work out what I'm going to do this week. So when I come into to do, I have, as well as the planned, the assigned to you, and the flagged, I also have important, and I have all. So if I come into all, I can see all my tasks, but I can got this little star, and that indicates the importance. So actually at the start of the week, I'm going to maybe untick all of these, and then I'm going to say, okay, now what is important to me this week? Well, actually, let me start with, well, that's past due, so I want to see this. These ones, if I come into planned, these are all the ones that have a date. So I can see, well, actually, that one's overdue, so let's leave that as important. These ones are earlier than today. This one's today, tomorrow. So I can look at all of these in the planned view based on the dates, and I can see what do I actually have to do this week. Okay, so those are all the tasks that have deadlines this week. Great, I can put those in, 13th to the 15th. So yes, I want to put those in as well, because I'm going to get all of those done this week. I then look at all the other ones. So I've got some planner tasks. Are any of these ones that aren't important? Are they actually, should they be important? Well, actually, no, they've got due dates well in the future. So maybe some of these flagged emails, yeah, maybe I want to do some of those because those have come in. And what this does is basically it sets up all of my tasks that have important so that I can see all of these in one place. And that one place is this important list. So now I've started the week, I've gone through, I've said, these are all the things that I'm going to get done this week. Now, I might look at my calendar and look at it and say, actually, do I have time? Yeah, I probably have time. Based on the meetings that are currently in place, I have time to do all of those. Perfect. So that's my start the week process done. My start the day process is then to come into these and say, okay, I want to actually populate my day. So if I come into my day, I can add a task to my day. So I can add a new task, but actually I can see these are the things that maybe I need to do today. And the suggestions, you get the suggestions from clicking on the light bulb. I can just add these in. So yes, I want to do that one today, that one today. Now I just need to check how much time do I have today. Okay, I've got a fair chunk of time. So I'm going to add, let's add those ones in because they're overdue. So yeah, I think that's probably good for today. I'm going to try and get these done today. Now let's just check my importance. Yep, so I want to add that one to my day, so I can right click on these as well, and I can actually say, yes, do I want to do these today? And I can actually add them in, say add to my day. That gives me then a sub list. These are the things that I want to do today. So I've got my list of things that I want to do today. So now I need to make sure I can get them done. So let's come back to Microsoft Outlook. So this is Outlook Online. Now in here, I have my day and it's got that same tick. So it is actually a list from Microsoft To Do. So it's a bit confusing. It says my day, but then it doesn't give you that list directly. But here I've got all of those lists and I can see them all there, and I can select my day. And that will, once it synchronizes, will have all of the things that I need to do today. So what I can also do here is I can drag this over and I can drag it directly onto my calendar. So I can drag that in. Maybe I need that to take a bit more time. So I can drag that in. I can drag this one in as well. So what I can actually do is I can work out what I'm going to do based on the items that are in my list. So that should have synchronized with everything else. So essentially what I've done there is I've taken my items, added them to my day in Microsoft To Do, because I can see all of my planned tasks from Planner that are assigned to me, and if they've got dates, I can see them. I can see my flagged emails. I can prioritize them as important, and then I can add them to my day. And then I can drag them over and drop them in and put them so they're blocking out time in my calendar as well. So it's a really useful combination. And from here, I can also tick them off and say, actually, yep, that's done. And therefore it'll move down. And if I then have more time, then I can come in here and I can maybe see other things that I've got in here. I've just ticked off the last one. So let's do that one. So I can add other things and say, actually, I've just done that. Great. So that I can tick that off as well. So I can see my tasks in here. So it's a very useful way to be able to actually just plan what you're going to do and tick them off. Now, my end of the day task, I'm going to actually go through and say, well, actually, I've got all of these emails, don't I? So let me just check and make sure, what have I actually put into action? So I've gone through, so let's put a few things in there. So these are emails that have come in. They're in action. I can flag them. I can just make sure, yes, have I done that? Yes. And if I tick that off in there, that will actually tick it off in To Do as well. So I have different ways that I can manage these as tasks. I can flag them, or I can tick them in here, and then I can manage them in To Do in here as well. Now, if we want to see To Do online, we can actually go in, and rather than having tasks, I have To Do here, and that'll take me directly into Microsoft To Do. And essentially it looks exactly the same as it does when you're actually in the desktop app. And if you have the mobile app, that will look exactly the same as well. It'll show you all of the lists. It will show you all of these views in terms of these smart lists, as we call them up here, the important, the My Day, and it will allow you to interact with them all in the same place. Now, the other place where I've got access to this, so we've talked a bit about Planner, is the new Planner app, or tasks as it will be called, within Microsoft Teams. So if I come into Planner and I look in here, actually I've got my important tasks. So I've got that list there. I have also all of the tasks in Planner based on the groups that they're in. So where I've got a planner in here, I can see those tasks. Where I've got the planners in different teams, I can see all of these different sets of plans, and I can actually manage those tasks in there as well. So this is a really useful way if you identify tasks that you need to quickly add, not just for yourself, but for your team. You can add them in really easily. So I can add a new task in here really easily. And if I could type it up, and I can assign those. So I know exactly, right, that's going to be assigned to me. I can give it a due date. So let's give it the 30th of November. Uh, 30th of November. And I can add that in. And essentially that's done. I've just added that task in. So I strongly recommend that you come in here to look at this for when you're creating those tasks that maybe you've been assigned, but actually are properly related to a project, to a planner. If you have a planner for it, come in here, make sure that they are team tasks when you create them. So that's a really quick sort of demonstration of how you can use Microsoft To Do, both in the desktop app and in the online app, and how you can also use it in combination with your emails, and then how you can take your emails, take To Do, and actually create your schedule, and actually block out the time to make sure that you actually have time to do your tasks. And where you've got your focus time, that might be a set of Pomodoros that you're going to do. Maybe your task is 1 Pomodoro. Think of it that way so that you can actually use the Pomodoros to actually help build that focus muscle and deliver on the tasks that you're saying to do. remember, by the time you get to the end of the week, one of the things that you want to do in the end of the week is to celebrate all the tasks that you've managed to complete during the week. So if you can block out the time to do those tasks, all the better. But that's the aim. Get your tasks completed by the end of the week. So let's just come back to the presentation. So just to summarize what I've shown you, we're really trying to use these ceremonies to help you manage the tasks that are coming in, and to then use them as part of your managing of your calendar to actually ensure that people understand when they can book meetings with you, but also when you're going to do work, when you're going to actually focus on the time to complete a task, making sure that you're actually blocking the time out in your calendar to prevent other people taking that time, so that you can actually manage your own expectations about what you're going to achieve that week, and make sure that you actually get to the end of the week and you have completed those tasks, and you have that, that genuinely there is a neurochemical called dopamine. If you celebrate achieving something, you get a little hit, it makes you feel good. And by the time you end the week, you want to have made sure that you've written down all the tasks that you have for the following week, that you've planned all the time that you may need for those meetings that have gone in during the week, and that you're comfortable, that you know what you need to do, and you can actually relax over the weekend knowing that you've made a note of all the things that you need to do. You can then prioritize them, doing the start of the week process on a Monday morning, and then you kick off back into a rhythm where you have the ceremonies going through the week to help you actually complete the tasks. So key things here really is planning your time. You need to understand where you are going to be most productive in that focus time. Make sure that you're understanding the balance between focus and collaboration that your job requires, that your role requires, and when you're going to be stronger on that focus time. Reduce the distractions. Turn off all of those little pop-ups that we use to notify us. If you're trying to focus and you're trying to collaborate, make sure that you are trying to do that. Emails, they can distract from that focus muscle. They can reduce your concentration. So make sure that people understand that you are going to be focusing, and you expect emails to be read during the day, but you're not going to respond to them as soon as they arrive. Managing expectations using the signatures on your email is a really powerful tool to actually help people understand how you work. And that's the key thing. This isn't the same for everybody. So it's working out how you work, how you can configure the tools to best support the ways that you actually need to work in your organization. So if you are working on documents, if you are working with client meetings, if you're working with code, they're different. They have different demands on your time, and this may ebb and flow based on the weeks that you're having. So configure the tools, and don't be afraid to to experiment and to evolve the way you use these tools. Understanding how to get the best out of them does take some time. So a lot of what I've told you, there's this is the way that I recommend to my clients to how to use these tools. There are lots of other resources that you can look at in terms of how to get more information around this. So if you've seen the My Analytics features in Office 365, a lot of the rationale behind that comes from some of these sources. So Deep Work by Cal Newport in particular, that really is if you need to focus, highly recommend it. Smarter, Faster, Better by Charles Duhigg. There's definitely the things about habit, how to get things done. There's lots of different tools that you can use, but there is a lot of psychology around how to use those tools, and this is the sort of thing that Microsoft's bringing in with the My Analytics piece. So do wider research, but certainly there's a lot of resources that you can look at there. And most importantly, remember, at the end of the day, you should turn off. At the end of the week, if you've written down tasks, actually the cognitive load reduced. You know, we remember tasks if they're not finished, and this has been proven since about 1927, when Bloom and Zegner identified that actually, if we have outstanding tasks, we remember them better than we remember completed tasks. But that can be mitigated by actually writing down the steps that you need to complete. So if you want to turn off, write down those tasks, make sure you're comfortable that they've all been turned off, they've all been written down, and then it's much easier to turn off at the end of the week. So with that, I don't know whether there have been any questions, so let me check and see if there have been any questions. Doesn't. So yes, summary of the presentation. It'll be recorded. Can to-do sync multiple calendars, e.g. Outlook, Google, Apple? No, at the moment it's Office 365 calendars. So it's part of Office 365 that it's looking at. So it needs an Office 365 calendar in the way that I've shown it. I believe it's available with Outlook.com as well. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. LinkedIn, yes. So Alan Erdley. So I am on LinkedIn. Let me just go to the next one. There you go. Yes, and I'll post a link to that on Twitter and LinkedIn as well after this session. But yes, the flow is available from my blog as well.
Hi Alan, just Emma here jumping in. Just looking through the Q&A, I believe one also came through from Tanya. If it helps, I can read it out.
Yep, sure.
So Tanya asked, how can we define and manage our response time while mostly now working on messengers as Slack, Hangouts or WhatsApp, where you expected to respond immediately?
Yeah, it's a good question, Tanya. So I guess if you have multiple tools that you're using, so if you're using Slack, WhatsApp, all of those other tools as well as email, the best thing to do is to try and sort of think about, well, what are the tools that you prioritize, and to try and put a priority list. And that might be that, you know, you put it down as on your footer, you know, use these tools in this order. It sounds like you've got quite a lot of different tools in play at the moment. And I guess it really depends, I guess, on how you can communicate to the different people who are using those tools with you. So certainly I communicate internally on a reasonably regular basis, just to sort of let people know, you know, that I use email as my least favorite. Teams I'm more likely to respond to, but if I'm concentrating, then I will be concentrating, and I'll have do not disturb on. So looking at my status in Teams, you know, so you could do the same thing with Slack. You know, that gives an indication. I think certainly if you put an out of office on when you're trying to concentrate as well, and just say, you know, I'm out of office, I'm focusing, I'll be back on looking at my email and my other forms of communication on these dates. That's another way to do it as well. So if you are looking, the other one that I've seen some people do is to put up essentially a personal manifesto on how they work. It's slightly harder to do unless you've got an intranet that you can put a page up on, but that's the other way to look at it, is to say, you know, maybe as a team, this is how we want to work, and you communicate to everybody as a team rather than it being an individual. That works as well. I hope that answered your question. There's not really a simple answer to it. Link to my blog is, I'll just put that now. Yeah, please feel free to follow me on Twitter. I am on LinkedIn as well. So if you reach out, more than happy to answer questions about this subject.
Great. I've just seen another question come through there from Anonymous. Do you recommend separating personal versus work to do, or you combine them into one big giant task list?
Oh, very good question. Personally, I keep them separated. Now, one of the advantages of the mobile app is that you can have multiple accounts logged in, and you can switch between them quite easily. And so just to show you in here, you can do it in To Do. So I can swap between different accounts in here quite easily. So I do keep my personal and work separated. And for this, I've got a demo account that I use for demos like this. So Microsoft To Do is very easy to swap between those accounts. And then each account essentially for me, I use it with Office 365. So therefore it's bringing in Planner within that tenant. It won't bring it in across multiple tenants. But yes, giant task lists, you tend to get lots of tasks just sinking to the bottom and never being prioritized. So I'm always quite rigid with how I manage tasks. So if they've got a due date, then they're going to get done. If they don't, then they tend never to get done because they'll just sink to the bottom. So try and be disciplined in your tasks. If it's important, it should have a date when you want to get it done. If it keeps getting bumped out, then there's obviously it's a lower priority, and therefore I would strongly consider, whether you're going to actually say to yourself, actually, I'm not going to complete this task because it's not as high a priority as anything else that I'm doing. I hope that helps answer your question.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alan, for getting through those questions. And indeed, if there are any more over the next minute or two, please feel free to get them in. If not, you're welcome to reach out on our meetup group. Alan has also posted his contact details, so you can reach out in those ways as well. But Alan, it's been so great to have you deliver this session, and some really useful tips in there too, which I think will be really valuable to everyone who joined us today on this session. So thank you so much.
Yeah, pleasure.
Great. And again, it would be great to have you back at the Reactor and deliver a session like this again. And certainly if there's any feedback too from people who've joined today, please do let us know. And if you'd like to see this session run again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if there's any requests, yeah, just do let us know.
Brilliant. Great. So yeah, just with the slide we have showing, there's lots of ways to connect with the Reactor. Most of you will probably have joined through our meetup pages. We are also on Twitter, and our Twitter handle is on the screen in front. As well as YouTube. All of our sessions are recorded and put onto our YouTube channel, so the link is there for you to have a look, and this session will be live by the end of the week. Lastly, then we have a new newsletter which is going out monthly, and it gives you direct access to sessions with the registration links and all of the information, so you're very welcome to sign up to that newsletter too. Okay. I don't see any more questions coming through, and we are just on time now. So again, Alan, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today too, and for your brilliant questions that have come through as well. And I do hope to see everyone at the next Reactor session.
Thanks, Emma.